I've been teaching college for nearly 20 years. Next year will be my 20th year teaching college. I started teaching when I was 24 years old, and I'm 43 now. And I want to quit. I don't want to be a college professor anymore. And it's not only because it's been so long and I'm just wanting to branch out and do new things. And it's not only because, I'm not crazy about my college environment and the bureaucracy and administrative tendencies. It's mostly because of what I'm seeing in the classroom and with my students. And I want to first take a lot of personal responsibility in getting relaxed and comfortable and, accumulating so many years of teaching and having some really good, strong assignments and, practices that have been working for years, styles that have been working for years, and not changing those things a whole lot over time, especially in the last, 5 years or 8 years. And one part of the reason that I couldn't do some of those things is because, we have a minimum of 5 classes at my 2 year college. And I think it's the same at other 2 year colleges. So it's far more classes than professors at 4 year universities tend to have. And I usually teach 6 classes. They're called overloads because it's just some really nice additional pay. And once you teach one class, you already have the material. And so it's easy to replicate that for another class. So I usually have 6 classes. I've taught 6 classes for nearly the last 20 years. I would say the last 16 for sure, 15 or 16. 6 classes every single semester. So it's a lot of teaching. It's a heavy load when it comes to grading, uh, class management as far as answering emails and all those sorts of things. It's a lot. So it doesn't free up a whole lot of space for you to be extremely innovative every semester or every year. And then I was placed in the position of being the only full time sociology professor for 8 years in my college, even though the classes, were doing well. We were one of the highest performing programs in my area, in my department of social sciences. They just wouldn't hire more sociology professors, for reasons that I have some ideas about some of those reasons. Some of the same reasons that the humanities are suffering from lack of hiring and lack of investment. These are disciplines that really challenge systems and challenge power structures and incorporate various perspectives. And so they're a lot more dynamic, in some ways than other disciplines. And that makes the powers that be very uncomfortable. And so I've had my own struggles, in my college, some really sincere ones. I've really gone head to head with the administration more than one time. I've had to defend students more than one time. So, I don't love my college environment, if I'm being perfectly honest. What has kept me in this role for so long is because I love sociology. I love my discipline. Not a day or a week has gone by where I've been bored with sociology or not wanting to teach sociology. Even to this day, when I'm creating assignments or reviewing what we're going to cover, for a particular class or for that week, I get excited still about some of this content. Like, I'm really excited about some of the things that new things that I'm introducing toward the end of the semester, and some cool activities that we're going to do around finals time. Like, I'm super excited to try out some of these things. I think they'll be really fun and engaging for the students and just something different that I know other professors are probably not doing, right? I'm not your typical professor. See that video. So I love sociology. I love creating, content for my classes and developing the materials and all of that. Have never stopped loving that. And, inshallah, I never will, stop loving sociology. It's so important. It's so relevant. And I just couldn't have made a better choice, when it comes to an academic focus and an academic career. And if you're interested in digging into the weeds of, some of the course materials I develop and the kind of ins and outs of the classroom environment, I could make other videos on that if y'all are interested. So let me know in the comments. But something I've noticed, and this was even before COVID, but definitely after the, 2020 height of the COVID pandemic, is that, students are just really not present, in the classes. They're showing up. It's like very rote. I have to be here to fulfill this requirement for my degree or certification, or because my parents said this is what I need to do next, or they're gonna kick me out or something. It's those sorts of reasons that are driving a lot of our students to college. And those just aren't strong enough reasons to keep them motivated throughout a 16-week semester or even a 13-week semester. And when your focus is just on the grade, on the outcome, sometimes you really miss the process and just the joy that comes with just learning and new insights and different perspectives and thinking about how they apply to your life and all these things that should really be a part of educational environments. Those are things I try to foster in my classes. But there's so few students anymore that are really there to just learn because they just love to learn, because they just have a real interest in the material and understanding it better and understanding themselves better and understanding the world around them better. So few nowadays. And, I taught college because I didn't want to deal with a lot of classroom management stuff. I didn't want to feel like I was babysitting, or, I have children. I didn't want to, feel like I was doing caretaking. That is one of the reasons I chose to teach at this level. But it's just, every class, even well into the semester, week 11, week 12, I'm still having to tell students to remove their earbuds during class, take off your headphones, put your cell phone away. You need to come to class within the first 10 minutes of the start. We only have 50 minutes. You can't show up 20 minutes into the class. You won't be able to come in. Like, these are still things I have to repeat over and over again, almost throughout the entire semester. And it is draining because it's I assume that 18, 19, 20-something-year-olds, who are my students for the most part, would get that, would just know that, okay, I'm entering this classroom environment, I need to put away these distractions and just get focused. That, you can't assume those sorts of things anymore. Like, it has to be explicit in the syllabus and in your course materials. You're going to have to repeat it probably multiple times in the classroom, and then you'll still have to address it because, I don't know if they're just not listening, they don't care, or if they're trying to challenge, us. I don't know, me. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's amazing how, when there's only like 5 weeks left of the semester, I'm still having to address those things. So a lot of times I feel like I'm teaching children, and they are young. I don't expect them to behave the way that 40-year-olds would behave. But I do expect adult-like behavior and awareness, and I expect them to abide by the agreements set forth in our syllabus and things like that. We talk about this the whole first day of class. Like, if you stay in this class, you are agreeing to these course policies that say you shouldn't be doing this. You're agreeing to everything that's laid out in the syllabus, but it's just words to them. It's not being ingrained or internalized, is what I found. So I'm really over that. It's exhausting. And then I realized my own, shortcomings in that been providing PowerPoints to my classes for, years, all of the years I've been teaching, except for maybe my first year or two where I didn't use PowerPoints at all. Can you believe that? They had like handouts, written handouts, and they'd have to fill in their notes. Maybe I should go back to that. But, we're in the digital age now, and everything is on a PowerPoint. And it is helpful to have a framing for the discussion and, have those bullet points, and that helps to kind of move the class along and for them to be able to follow well. So PowerPoints are useful. I wouldn't say that they aren't useful, but my problem has been that I provide them early in the week and I make them available before assignments are due. And so in my classes, they have a week to turn in assignments. The assignments open Monday morning and they close Sunday evening. So they have a full week to complete assignments. And I meet with my students on Monday and Wednesday. So I would post the PowerPoints usually Wednesday or Thursday, no later than Friday. And I mean, my PowerPoints nowadays are like 8 slides long, 10 slides long, at most 12 or 15 slides long, but most of them are within the 8 to 10 slide range. And I used to have really long PowerPoints when I started. I used to have like 40 slide PowerPoints or something that was ridiculous. So I felt like, oh, okay, I've changed the amount of PowerPoints that I have. So, that'll still make it so that they, will still read on their own. But something that's happened with the reduced slides of the PowerPoint is that I'm packing in vital information in those few slides, and a lot of information about the readings in those slides in particular. And students just aren't reading. They aren't reading. Just this week, I had a student, ask me a question about an activity. And I said, it's in the, reading. And he was just very honest. He said he didn't read. And so I was like, okay, well, you need to read because that's where the answer is. And I left it at that. It's like they're clearly not reading at all. They're relying completely on my PowerPoints. So I decided there's only a month and a half left of the semester. And I decided that I'm not posting the PowerPoints until the assignment deadline. So I'm not posting the PowerPoints until Sunday evening when the assignments close. So they're not going to have those PowerPoints to use throughout the week. So that's going to do a couple of things. It's going to draw students to class because they're not going to have the PowerPoints if they don't come. They're not going to have that material. They're not going to have the class lecture along with the PowerPoint material. And so it's going to increase attendance probably, and it will force them to read. Now, because they're clearly not reading. I was also noticing a reduction in book purchases, and it's not just affordability. My books aren't extremely expensive, and they're much more affordable than a lot of college textbooks. So it's not just affordability, and they get 2 books for like under $100. Generally, sometimes it could be a little over $100, $120, $130 for both of the books, which is, again, really affordable for most college textbooks. So it's not just the price that's prohibiting students from buying the books, it's that they're relying on the PowerPoints. They don't feel like they need the books because they have the PowerPoints. And my PowerPoints are so effective that they really don't need the books a whole lot. I mean, they do need them still. The students that do the best in my classes definitely have the books. They're reading, and they're coming to class. Like those are the ones that do really well, that get the A's. So they do need them, but you can get by, if you just want to see in the class, and you could probably get by on just the PowerPoints. And maybe you could squeeze a B, perhaps, if you come to class pretty regularly and just rely on the PowerPoints. So that was a major problem for me. That was a major problem that I realized was happening. So I switched up the whole game. I flipped the script. I'm not posting those PowerPoints until the assignments close. I decided that I'm going to have them take notes on the readings at the very start of class. And one of my classes, I actually add spoken contribution as a part of their credit for their activity that we complete in class every week. So I'm making a lot of changes here at the end of the semester, and I'm sure some students are not going to like that, and that's fine. They have some time to drop still if they decide to do that. But I wish I would have done it earlier. I wish I would have done this months ago, years ago even. I didn't even realize this was happening. And I think that if I would have taken a little bit more time to reflect on the patterns I was seeing, then I would have discovered this earlier. But, alas, I noticed it now, and it's definitely going to change the way that I teach moving forward. So I'm just dismayed and what I see with students. And this isn't just like, oh, all students are bad and it's AI. And I'm not saying that. I think that students have a lot going on. A lot of them are young and trying to figure out their lives. It's very difficult, in the world today to get by, to make ends meet. These students need to work and take care of families and all of these things that they're juggling. I am incredibly sympathetic to that. I just feel like, when you make this commitment to go to college and you're paying this money or you're taking out loans to do this, I would think that you'd want to get more out of that. What I've realized is that that's just not the case for a lot of students. Like, they are totally okay with just getting by with a C or worse. And they'll do the least amount that they can in these classes. And even when I'm grading papers, it's like, I'm so explicit in my instructions. We have full course paper workshops before every paper. We spend a full class period talking about the course paper. I tell them exactly what I want, exactly what it should look like. And then I still get papers that are missing those vital requirements, like sources. Like, how can you turn in a college paper without sources? It's just incredible when that's like the one thing that I like hone in on in the instructions and the workshops. And I'll still get papers, even the last paper, where there won't be any sources at all. And I'm just like, what is happening here? What is going on? And I'm not the kind of person that's going to be like emailing students that miss class every week, or like, I don't give them my phone number. Oh gosh, never. But I'm not going to be like trying to track them down and like, why didn't you come to class and do it? I don't have time to do all that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just not, I'm not going to like hold your hand in that way. I'm just not going to. Like, you have to become an adult at some point. You have to take on some responsibility at some point. And sometimes it takes learning some hard lessons and failing some classes, before that happens. It took that for me. But even though I didn't start out as the greatest student, when I began college, I had no idea what to expect or, anything. I had no direction or guidance. I just kind of jumped into four-year university. And so I struggled, but even then I knew to like bring something to write with to class. Even then I knew, oh, okay, there's office hours. I should probably go and talk to my professor if I have a question or if there's a problem. Like, even at 18, I kind of knew that. But students today, I mean, every class I have them write out their activity responses. And there are still students today that they'll have to borrow paper every single class from someone else because they won't bring anything to write with. There are still students who have nothing on their desktop, maybe their phone, or they might have nothing on their desktop throughout the entire class. They're not taking any notes whatsoever. That's another indication that they're just relying on the PowerPoints. But it's just incredible to me. I'm like, do y'all have like photographic memory where you're going to remember all this stuff? Or how are you taking in this information without taking any notes at all? Like, it's incredible. And I don't know what's going on with the computers. There's so many students that are using the computers in class, and I just assume they're taking notes or doing something related to class, but I'm sure some of them are definitely not doing that. So it's just a mess, and I've worn down on this, and I'm just so tired of it, and I want to be happy, and I don't want to add any more stress or take any years off of my life, worrying about these kinds of things anymore. So I am navigating out of my teaching career. And I can't say exactly how much longer I'm going to do this. I do have an idea in my mind. So when that time comes, I'll make another video letting you know that I have officially transitioned out of my teaching career, which, there'll be a lot of tears shed when that happens because I love teaching. It's absolutely what I was put on this earth to do. It's one of the things I was put on this earth to do. I believe that. And I'll continue to teach, right? This channel is about education, as well, and providing information. So I'll always be a teacher. I'll always be an educator, but I don't need to be a college professor forever. I don't need to be a college professor until retirement even. So this is Class with Prof. Eve, where we connect sociology to everyday life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.